So just prior to Battlefield 2042 starting Season 1, we got update 0.4.1 and then also update 1.0, which have made a lot of changes to the weapons in Battlefield 2042, essentially reshuffling the meta and giving us a few weapons that have essentially risen to the top. So today I'm going to be going through the 5 weapons that I personally think are the best in the game right now, so that you guys can start using these and have a little bit more fun on the new map exposure. Now keep in mind throughout the video that this is obviously just my own opinion. There really is no objective best or worst weapons in the game. A lot of it does come down to personal preference and your own playstyle and stuff like that, but there are definitely some weapons that are objectively better than others, and I've essentially tried every single weapon or most of the weapons that are going to be in this bracket anyway since Season 1 went live. And so yeah, despite it being my opinion, I have tested these out quite a bit. So I will say I feel like it is an informed opinion, but at the end of the day it is just my opinion, so definitely keep that in mind. Now I'm also leaving snipers off this list. I actually prefer using snipers myself. I definitely do better with snipers than any other weapons, but at the end of the day they are purely skill based because they are a one-shot headshot. However, if you're not good at aiming, for example, they're probably not that good. So I'm just going to leave those off. They are completely down to personal preference. And then for the 5 weapons that I name, I'm also going to go through some quick loadout tips as well. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So the first one that I've got on the list here, and these are really in no particular order, but to be completely honest, I'd probably have this at number 1 if I had to. This is the M5A3. Now this was already very good before update 0.4.1. It was probably already pushing to be one of the better weapons already, but it definitely feels a lot better right now. And for me, this is probably the weapon that I tend to get killed by the most and probably do the best with myself as well. So that's when you can kind of tell that it is a really solid weapon. The M5A3 feels like a bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to the assault rifles. It can do really decent at long range, but it is also probably more in line with the SMGs compared to most of the other assault rifles. The rest of them are a little bit more geared towards that sort of mid to long range, but the M5A3 can handle itself in close quarters. So this one is a little bit of an all-rounder, and that is, to be fair, probably why it is considered in the top bracket of weapons in the game. Now, as for the loadout for this one, the attachments that I personally recommend the most are the close combat ammo. That really increases the rate of fire, and it actually kind of reduces the recoil as well, so it's just like a bit of a laser beam. Those bullets do deal less damage, but they fire at a faster rate of fire, and they're a bit more accurate. I then use the LWG grip, and then I also use the shortened barrel, which in tandem with those close combat rounds kind of turns it to be a bit more of like an SMG and AR hybrid. It becomes definitely a lot better at close range. It's probably a little bit worse at long range, but it can still handle itself. So yeah, definitely give that weapon a try with those attachments, see how you like it, and I'm almost certain you guys will do fairly well with it. Now moving on, we have the K30, and this one has really risen to the top since those changes, simply because of the way that the bullet drop off, or I should say the damage drop off, has changed. Essentially all of the weapons in the game are now dealing more damage at range, and because the K30 deals so much damage, because obviously it has a crazy rate of fire, with the increased damage at range, it is now kind of a laser beam at mid-range as well. So it's not just good up close, it's obviously very dominant up close, but it can still hang at mid-range as well. Now for the loadout for this one, I use the drum mag, and I personally use the laser sight, but you could use the LWG grip if you're not too keen on the hip fire. The laser sight is way better for hip fire, obviously, and hip firing is really, really good, especially in those really close quarters areas. And then I also use the champion muzzle brake as well to reduce the vertical recoil, because obviously this one does have quite a bit of kick with that crazy rate of fire. Now next on the list we have the AC42, and this has essentially been one of the best weapons since launch. It hasn't really changed that much, to be honest, and it is essentially just a laser beam at mid-range. This is probably one of the best like mid-range weapons in the game, and it can also do really well at long range as well, simply because of that semi-auto fire mode. So if you actually change it to the single shot fire mode, it essentially turns it into a DMR. It doesn't deal as much damage as like the DM7 for example, but it is really, really accurate, and it essentially has no recoil whatsoever. Now the 3 main attachments that I recommend for the AC42 are the extended mag, the LWG grip, and the tactical compensator. Those right there are kind of the attachments that I use in most situations across most weapons. They're kind of like the go-to attachments, and so definitely give those a try on the AC42. Try and stick to those like mid-range areas, and you are going to dominate the enemies with that weapon. Now moving on, we have a bit of a surprising one actually, and this is probably the one that has jumped up out of nowhere actually. This was never really all that good prior to these updates. It wasn't bad, but it was just not really in this same bracket, and this one is the SFAR GL, which is a mouthful. I'm just going to call it the Scar. But this one is definitely in, if not the top 5, at least like the top 7 or 8 weapons in the game for me now, which it definitely wasn't beforehand. Now, the one downside that I'll say to this weapon is it really isn't that good at close range. It obviously has a slow rate of fire, and that's just really not good for close quarters. So compared to most of the other weapons, even the AC-42, to be honest, that can do better at close range than the Scar can. So compared to the rest of these, it's really a little bit more niche, as it's really only good at that mid to long range. But at that range, the fact that you don't have to burst fire like the AC-42, I feel like this one is a little bit more accurate. I tend to be a bit more accurate with fully auto weapons. And with this weapon, really the only attachments that you need to know are you probably want to equip the drum mag, because obviously it only has 20 bullets, which is pretty frustrating. And then I also just use the tactical compensator again. Obviously it has no underbarrel attachments other than the different grenade launchers, so unfortunately you can't use a grip on it, but it is fairly accurate as it is. And yeah, if you guys are looking for a weapon that's gonna pretty much dominate in that sort of mid-range, then this is definitely the one. Like I said, it does suffer a little bit from being a bit more niche. It's not that good at close range, but it is still definitely very, very good at those mid to long ranges. Now, last but definitely not least on the list, we have got the new weapon, the BSVM, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect to have this on the list when they announced that this was coming. The marksman rifles in this game, they're all pretty decent, but none of them are really dominant. But I'm going to be honest, this is probably the all-around best weapon in the game, and I know that might sound crazy because it has only just come out, but I am pretty confident in saying this is the most versatile weapon in this game. Now, the thing with this weapon is that it is able to be used in fully auto mode, which I think actually a lot of people don't quite know yet. It starts off in the single fire mode, but you can turn it into a fully automatic weapon, and so it can do really well at long range. Like I said, it is a marksman rifle, so it's in that class for that exact reason, but you can actually turn it into borderline and SMG, and it can hang with the rest of the SMGs. So like I said, it is very versatile. Now for me, I have 2 different loadouts for this one that I essentially switch between depending on the situation. When I'm heading into a close combat type of situation, I equip the close combat rounds, the shortened barrel, and just like a red dot sight, just to give me the perfect build for up close. This will massively increase the rate of fire. I think it has an 800 rounds per minute rate of fire, and like I said, this can hang with the rest of the SMGs. It's probably not as good as like it's definitely not as good as the K30. It's probably like not quite as good as the MP9, but it can hang. It's in that same sort of bracket, I guess, as the SMGs. But then when I'm heading into more of an open area, maybe a long range gunfight starts happening, that is when I switch to the second loadout, which is the higher power rounds, the extended barrel, and then a longer range sight, like the 2x sight. Now, this essentially turns it into a weapon that can hang with the likes of the DM7, for example. I believe, and I haven't done the testing, so take this with a grain of salt, but the weapon breakdown will be coming soon. I believe it's a 2-shot headshot with this loadout that I just mentioned, and it's like a 3, maybe 4-shot kill to the body, and it still has a pretty decent rate of fire, and obviously, like I said, it can be used in fully auto mode. So this one is definitely one of my new favorites. I just really enjoy it because you can kind of use it in any situation, and it, like I said, it's not dominant in any area, so it's not going to beat a DM7 in that type of gunfight, and it's not going to beat a K30 in that type of gunfight, but it can sort of still handle itself pretty well in both of those situations, which is definitely very handy. So like I said, I think this is easily the most versatile weapon in the game, and I would definitely recommend unlocking this as fast as you guys can, heading into the solo mode and just getting as many kills on those bots as you can to get some attachments, at which point you're going to be having an absolute blast with the new weapon. That is going to do it for my top 5 weapons in the game heading into Season 1 though, guys. I'm very keen to hear what you guys think though, so if you agree or disagree, definitely let me know down in the comments. I will be doing some further testing. I'm obviously going to be continuing with the weapon breakdowns, and I'm also going to be redoing those attachment guides, like the underbarrel attachments and the barrels and stuff like that. So once I've done all that, maybe this will change. Maybe I'll find a new weapon that I think fits into this top 5, but for now, these are the weapons that I personally think are the top 5 best weapons in the game. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.